A barefoot homeless boy slipped through the gates of a billionaire's mansion and found a little girl trapped in silence, unable to walk, unable to smile. What he did next, with no money, no medicine, just his bare feet and a brave heart, shocked everyone. The millionaire father stood frozen on his balcony, tears streaming down his face, because his street child was doing what all his wealth could not, bringing his daughter back to life. This is a true story about the day everything changed. Stay with me, because what happens next will make you believe in miracles again. Welcome to Radiant Story and Tales. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you are watching from. Let me tell you a story that will touch your heart. It's about wealth, about loss, and about how sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change everything. In the heart of Mumbai, there lived a man named Vincent Kumar. If you heard his name in business circles, people would nod with respect. He owned factories, buildings, and investments that stretched across 3 continents. They called him the Iron Hand, because every decision he made turned into gold. His mansion in Malabar Hill stood like a palace, with marble floors so shiny you could see your reflection, gardens that bloomed year-round, and gates so tall they seemed to touch the sky. But inside that beautiful mansion, there was a silence that no amount of money could break. Vincent had a daughter. Her name was Priya, and she was only 9 years old. Once upon a time, not so long ago, Priya had been the light of that enormous house. She would run through the gardens chasing butterflies, her laughter echoing off the walls like music. She would dance in the rain, paint pictures that covered the refrigerator, and ask her father 1,000 questions every single day. But then came the accident. It happened on a rainy evening 2 years ago. Vincent's wife, Kavita, was driving Priya home from a birthday party. The roads were slick, the visibility was poor, and a truck ran a red light. In one terrible moment, everything changed. Kavita died at the scene, and Priya, sweet little Priya, survived but could no longer walk. The doctors said her spine was damaged. They said she might never walk again. Vincent tried everything, and I mean everything. He flew Priya to Singapore, where the best surgeons examined her. He took her to Switzerland for experimental therapy. He brought specialists from America to his home, paying them whatever they asked. Month after month, treatment after treatment, hope after hope, but nothing worked. And slowly, something worse than the paralysis began to happen. Priya stopped smiling. She stopped talking much. She would sit in her wheelchair by the window, staring out at the garden she used to run through, and her eyes looked empty. It was as if the accident had taken not just her ability to walk, but her spirit too. Vincent watched his daughter disappear a little more each day. At night, when the house was quiet, he would stand outside her door and listen to the silence. No laughter, no singing, no questions, just silence. And it broke him in ways that losing money never could. He threw himself into work, trying to outrun the pain. But every evening when he came home, the silence would be waiting for him. The mansion felt like a tomb, beautiful, expensive, and utterly empty of joy. Vincent's friends told him to be patient. The servants whispered prayers. The doctors prescribed medication for depression. But nothing reached Priya. She was trapped somewhere inside herself, and Vincent didn't know how to bring her back. He would sit beside her wheelchair in the garden sometimes, try and make conversation. "Look at the flowers, Priya. They're blooming just for you." But she would just nod slightly and look away. He hired entertainers, magicians, and storytellers. They would perform, and Priya would watch with polite disinterest, never laughing, never clapping. Vincent began to wonder if he would ever hear his daughter's laughter again. He began to fear that the girl she used to be was gone forever. And in the darkest moments, late at night in his study, this powerful man who commanded respect from everyone would put his head in his hands and cry. Because what good was all his money if he couldn't buy back his daughter's smile? The mansion had everything. Swimming pools, game rooms, a library with thousands of books, and a garden that landscape architects had designed to perfection. But it had no joy. The walls echoed with memories of laughter that no longer existed. The rooms felt too big, too empty, too sad. And Vincent? He became harder, colder. At work, They said the Iron Hand had become even more ruthless. But really, he was just a father whose heart was breaking, who wore his wealth like armor because underneath it all, he felt completely powerless. This is where our story truly begins. On an ordinary afternoon that would turn out to be extraordinary, Priya sat in her usual spot in the garden, her wheelchair positioned under the shade of a mango tree. Her nurse had left her there with a book, but Priya wasn't reading. She never really read anymore. She just stared ahead, lost in thoughts that no one could reach. The security guards were making their rounds. The gardeners were trimming hedges. The house staff were preparing the evening meal. Everything was moving like clockwork in Vincent Kumar's perfectly organized world. But just beyond the gates, on the dusty street outside, a young boy was watching. His name was Deepak, though most people just called him Deep. He was 12 years old, barefoot, wearing shorts that were 2 sizes too big and a faded shirt with holes in it. He had been wandering the neighborhood, as he did every day, looking for work, looking for food, looking for any opportunity to survive another day on the streets of Mumbai. And through a gap in the hedge, he saw her, a girl, alone in a wheelchair, looking sadder than anyone he had ever seen. And something inside Deepak stirred. He knew what sadness felt like. He lived with it every single day. But seeing it on that little girl's face, in that beautiful garden, surrounded by everything money could buy, somehow it touched him deeply. He thought to himself, maybe I can help. Maybe I can make her smile. And so he did something that would change 3 lives forever. He slipped through the hedge and stepped into the garden, and he began to dance. Now, you have to understand something about Deepak. This boy had nothing, absolutely nothing. He slept under bridges, in bus shelters, sometimes in the corners of construction sites where the workers would let him stay if he swept up at the end of the day. He hadn't seen his mother in 5 years, not since the day she left him at a temple and never came back. He didn't know who his father was. Life on the streets of Mumbai is hard, really hard. Some days, Deepak would go without eating. Some nights, he would shiver in the cold, wishing he had a blanket. Other children who lived on the streets had become tough, angry, bitter. But not Deepak. Somehow, he had held on to something precious, joy. When the world was cruel, Deepak danced. When his stomach was empty, he danced. When people ignored him or shooed him away like a stray dog, he danced. Dancing was his superpower. It was how he survived. He would perform at traffic lights, and sometimes drivers would toss him a few coins. He would entertain crowds at the train station, and occasionally someone would buy him food. But more than that, dancing made him feel alive. When his feet moved and his body swayed, he forgot about hunger. He forgot about loneliness. He forgot about fear. For those few minutes, he was free. So when Deepak slipped into Vincent Kumar's garden and saw Priya sitting there looking so sad, he did the only thing he knew how to do. He started dancing. Not smooth, professional dancing like you see in movies. No, this was silly dancing, funny dancing, the kind that makes you laugh because it's so ridiculous. He spun around like a top until he got dizzy and pretended to fall. He walked like a robot with stiff legs and jerky movements. He made his eyes go wide and his mouth make funny shapes. He flapped his arms like a chicken and hopped on one foot like a crazy person. At first, Priya just stared at him, confused. Who was this dirty boy in her garden? Why was he moving like that? But then, something happened. A small sound escaped her lips. A giggle, just a tiny one, but it was there. Deepak heard it, and his heart soared. He danced harder, sillier, more dramatically. He pretended to slip on a banana peel that wasn't there. He acted like he was pulling an invisible rope. He moved in slow motion like he was underwater, making bubble sounds with his mouth. And Priya laughed, really laughed. The sound came from deep inside her, bursting out like water from a broken dam. She clapped her hands together. She leaned forward in her wheelchair. Her eyes, which had been dull and empty for so long, suddenly sparkled with life. "Do it again," she shouted. "Do the chicken walk again." Deepak grinned, so wide his face hurt. He did the chicken walk, then added a chicken dance, then pretended to lay an egg. Priya laughed so hard she could barely breathe. She was wiping tears from her eyes. But these were happy tears, the first happy tears in 2 years. Inside the mansion, Vincent was in his study going through paperwork when he heard it. At first, he thought he was imagining things. But no, it was real. His daughter was laughing. The sound that he thought he might never hear again was echoing through his house. He ran to the balcony and looked down at the garden, and there he saw something that stopped him in his tracks. A street boy, dirty and ragged, was dancing like a fool, and his daughter, his beautiful Priya, was laughing and clapping and looking more alive than she had in 2 years. Vincent's first instinct was anger. Who was this boy? How did he get past security? What did he want? Was he dangerous? He almost called out to the guards to remove him immediately. But then he looked at Priya's face. Really looked at it. And he couldn't do it. He couldn't take away whatever magic was happening down there. So Vincent stood there, hidden behind the pillar, watching this barefoot boy with nothing give his daughter something he, with all his millions, had failed to provide. Happiness. When the dancing finally stopped, Priya was exhausted but glowing. Deepak stood there, panting, sweating, but smiling. "I have to go now," he said quietly. "But I'm glad you laughed. What's your name?" Priya asked, her voice stronger than it had been in months. "Deepak, but people call me Deep. Will you come back tomorrow, Deep?" The boy looked uncertain. "I don't know if I'm allowed." "Please," Priya said, and there was something in her voice, a spark of life that had been missing. "Please come back." Deepak nodded. "Okay, I'll try." He turned to leave, but Vincent's voice stopped him. "Wait." The boy froze, fear flashing across his face. He knew that tone. It was the tone of adults who were about to yell at him, chase him away, maybe even hit him. He had heard it 1,000 times before. But when Deepak turned around, Vincent wasn't looking angry. He was looking confused, moved, almost grateful. "What you did just now," Vincent said slowly, "for my daughter. Thank you." Deepak blinked in surprise. Adults didn't usually thank him for anything. "Can you come back tomorrow?" Vincent asked. "Same time." "Really?" Deepak couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Really? And before you leave today, go to the kitchen. Tell them I said to give you food." That evening, Deepak ate his first real meal in 3 days. Rice, curry, vegetables, and even sweet yogurt for dessert. He ate slowly, savoring every bite, hardly believing his luck. And when he left the front gate this time, with the guards nodding at him instead of chasing him away, he felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. He felt important. He felt needed. He felt like maybe, just maybe, his life was worth something after all. Deepak came back the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. At first, he would arrive nervous, half expecting to be turned away. But each afternoon at 4 o'clock, the gates would open for him, and Priya would be waiting in the garden, her face lighting up the moment she saw him. Their routine became the heartbeat of the mansion. Deepak would enter, bow dramatically like he was performing for royalty, and ask, "Are you ready for today's show?" And Priya would clap her hands and shout, "Yes, yes." Then the magic would begin. Some days, Deepak would tell stories about life at the train station, acting out all the characters. The angry ticket collector, the chai seller with a loud voice, the pigeons fighting over crumbs. He would make Priya laugh until her sides hurt. Other days, he would create elaborate dance routines, pretending to be different animals or making up silly walks. He invented a dizzy dance, where he would spin until he couldn't stand straight, then stumble around like a drunk uncle. Priya would laugh so hard she could barely breathe. But something else was happening too. Something nobody expected. Priya was getting stronger. Not just mentally, but physically. The laughter was waking something up inside her body. When she laughed, her whole body engaged. Her core muscles tightened. Her arms moved as she clapped. Her breathing deepened. The doctor who came for her regular checkup noticed it immediately. "Mr. Kumar," he said, adjusting his glasses in surprise, "her muscle tone has improved. Her posture is better. Her engagement with the world is completely different. What have you been doing?" Vincent smiled for the first time in months. "We have a new therapy," he said. It's called friendship. As the weeks passed, Priya started trying to move more. During Deepak's performances, she would lift her arms higher, trying to copy his movements. She would lean forward in her wheelchair, engaging her core. She would twist her upper body to follow his spins. Try this. Deepak would shout, doing a simple wave with his hand. And Priya would try, her face scrunched up with concentration and determination. One day, Deepak taught her a clapping rhythm. It was complicated, with different patterns and speeds. At first, Priya couldn't do it. Her hands wouldn't cooperate. But Deepak was patient. "It's okay," he said gently. "Let's try again. Slowly this time." They practiced for 20 minutes. And finally, Priya got it. The rhythm was perfect. She looked at her hands in wonder, as if they belonged to someone else. "I did it," she shouted. "Did you see? I did it." Vincent, watching from the balcony as he did every day now, felt tears running down his cheeks. His daughter was fighting again. She was trying again. She wanted to live again. And all because of a boy who had nothing but gave everything. But Vincent's business associates didn't see it that way. Word spread about the street boy who visited the mansion every day. At a board meeting, one of Vincent's oldest partners pulled him aside. "Vincent, what are you thinking? A street child in your home? He could be a thief. He could be dangerous. What will people say? You're damaging your reputation." Vincent looked at the man coldly. "My reputation? Let me tell you something about reputation. For 2 years, I had the reputation of being the richest man in Mumbai, while my daughter sat in silence, wishing she was dead. Now, she laughs every single day. She tries to move. She talks. She plans for tomorrow. So you tell me, which reputation matters more?" The man had no answer. And Vincent walked away, done with people who measure worth in money instead of heart. At home, the transformation continued. Priya started talking more at dinner. She would tell her father stories about what Deepak had done that day. He pretended to be a monkey escaping from the zoo. It was so funny. And then he taught me a new song. Vincent would listen, smiling, his food getting cold on his plate, because he was too happy listening to his daughter's voice to remember to eat. The mansion, which had felt like a tomb for so long, was alive again. The servants smiled. The guards joked with each other. Even the garden seemed more beautiful, as if the plants could feel the joy. Deepak himself was changing too. He had always been a happy boy despite his circumstances, but now there was something more in his eyes. Purpose. He mattered to someone. He had a reason to wake up every morning beyond just survival. He had a mission. Make Priya smile, help Priya move, be Priya's friend. And he was eating regularly now. Vincent had instructed the kitchen staff to feed Deepak before he left each evening. The boy would sit at the kitchen table, eating slowly, savoring every bite, still not quite believing this was real. The cook, a kind woman named Lakshmi, would pile his plate high and watch with satisfaction as he ate. "You're too thin," she would scold gently. "Eat more. Growing boys need food." Deepak would nod, his mouth full, his eyes grateful. Some evenings, Lakshmi would pack extra food for him to take with him. "For later," she would say, pressing the package into his hands. And Deepak would hug the food to his chest like treasure, because that's exactly what it was. But the most important change was happening in the garden every afternoon. Priya was growing stronger. Her laughter was medicine. Her friendship with Deepak was therapy more powerful than anything Vincent's money had bought. And everyone who saw them together could feel it. Something beautiful was happening. Something that couldn't be measured or bought or prescribed. Hope was growing in that garden. And it was about to bloom in ways that no one expected. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon in late October. The monsoon season had ended, and the air was crisp and clean. The garden was alive with the sound of birds, and somewhere nearby, a radio was playing an old Hindi love song. Deepak was in the middle of one of the performances. He had invented a new dance that day, something he called the confused tourist. He was spinning around, pretending to read a map upside down, asking imaginary people for directions in terrible accents, bumping into invisible poles. Priya was laughing so hard she had tears streaming down her face. Stop, stop, she gasped. My stomach hurts from laughing. But then something came over her. She looked down at her legs, at her feet resting on the footplates of her wheelchair, and she thought about something Deepak had said weeks ago. You know what? I think you're getting stronger. I can see it. She placed both hands firmly on the armrests of her wheelchair. Her face became serious, determined. Deep, she said quietly, I want to try something. Deepak stopped dancing immediately. He saw the look on her face and understood. He came closer, kneeling down beside her wheelchair. Okay, he said softly. What do you want to try? I want to stand. The words hung in the air. From the balcony, Vincent heard them. He had been reviewing documents, but dropped everything, moving to the railing to see better. His heart began to pound. Are you sure? Deepak asked gently. Priya nodded. I'm sure. I've been practicing. When you're not here, I've been pushing myself up just a little bit. It's hard, but I think maybe I can do it now, if you help me. Deepak stood up and positioned himself in front of her. Okay, I'm right here. I won't let you fall. Whenever you're ready. Priya took a deep breath. She gripped the armrests until her knuckles turned white. She could feel her heart beating in her ears. This was it. This was the moment she had been working toward, without even fully realizing it. She pushed. Her arms shook with effort. Her face turned red. For a moment, nothing happened. Her body felt too heavy, her legs too weak. But then, slowly, incredibly, she began to rise. Her bottom lifted off the seat. Just an inch, then 2 inches. Her legs trembled beneath her, trying to remember what they were supposed to do. Her knees threatened to buckle, but she kept pushing, kept fighting, kept rising. That's it. Deepak whispered, his eyes wide. Keep going. You're doing it. Vincent gripped the balcony railing, so hard his hands hurt. Come on, baby, he whispered. You can do it. And then, like a miracle happening in slow motion, Priya was standing, not fully upright, not steadily, but standing. Her feet were flat on the ground. Her legs were bearing her weight. She was standing for the first time in 2 years. I'm standing, she gasped. Deep, I'm standing. You're standing. Deepak shouted, jumping up and down. You're standing. You're standing. Priya held herself there for 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Every muscle in her body was shaking. Sweat broke out on her forehead, but she was standing. She was actually standing. And in that moment, she wasn't a girl who couldn't walk. She was a warrior. She was strong. She was alive. Then her legs gave out, and she fell back into the wheelchair. But instead of crying, she was laughing and crying at the same time, her whole body shaking with emotion. Deepak dropped to his knees beside her, grabbing her hands. You did it. Priya, you did it. You stood up. You're amazing. You're incredible. And then Vincent was there, having run from the balcony faster than he'd moved in years. He knelt on the other side of her wheelchair, his expensive suit getting grass stains, his carefully combed hair falling into his face, and he didn't care about any of it. My brave girl, he said, his voice breaking. My brave, strong, beautiful girl. I'm so proud of you. So proud. Priya reached for both of them, one hand for her father, one hand for her friend. I stood up, she whispered, still not quite believing it. I actually stood up. The 3 of them stayed there in the garden, crying and laughing together as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The guards at the gate wiped their eyes. The gardener who had been trimming hedges stopped to watch, his own throat tight with emotion. Even Lakshmi, who had come out from the kitchen to see what the commotion was about, stood with her hand over her heart, tears running down her face, because they all understood what they had just witnessed. It wasn't just a girl standing up. It was hope defeating despair. It was love proving stronger than money. It was a miracle that had nothing to do with medicine and everything to do with the human spirit. That night, Vincent couldn't sleep. He walked through his mansion, but this time the silence didn't feel sad. It felt peaceful. He stood in Priya's doorway and watched her sleep, a smile still on her face even in her dreams. Then he walked outside to the garden where it had all happened. He stood in the spot where Priya had stood that afternoon, where a little girl had found the courage to fight for her life again. And Vincent Kumar, one of the most powerful men in Mumbai, the man they call the Iron Hand, sat down on the grass and wept, not from sadness this time, but from gratitude. Gratitude for a street boy who had nothing but gave everything. Gratitude for laughter that became medicine. Gratitude for a second chance he thought would never come. Tomorrow, everything would change again. But tonight, he just sat in the garden where miracles happened and gave thanks. 3 months later, Priya took her first real steps. Not just standing and falling back down, but actual steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. Deepak held her hands, walking backward as she walked forward, both of them grinning so wide their faces hurt. "Look at you," Deepak shouted. "You're walking. You're actually walking." Vincent recorded on his phone, his hand shaking so much the video was blurry, but he didn't care. This moment was being recorded in his heart more clearly than any camera could capture. The doctors were amazed. "This is extraordinary," they said, examining Priya. "Her recovery has accelerated beyond anything we predicted. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." But Vincent knew it wasn't some complicated medical breakthrough. It was simple. It was love. It was friendship. It was a boy who danced and a girl who decided to live again. As Priya grew stronger, something else was happening. The relationship between Vincent and Deepak was changing too. At first, Vincent had seen Deepak as the street boy who helped his daughter. But as the weeks and months passed, he began to see him differently. He saw how Deepak always asked Priya how she was feeling before he started performing. He noticed how the boy never asked for anything extra, never took advantage of the situation. He watched how Deepak's face would light up with genuine joy every time Priya made progress. One evening, Vincent called Deepak into his study. The boy came nervously, wondering if he had done something wrong. Vincent gestured to a chair, and Deepak sat on the edge of it, his back straight, his hands in his lap. "Deep," Vincent began, then paused, choosing his words carefully. "You've been coming here for almost 6 months now. In that time, you've given my daughter something I couldn't buy with all my money. You've given her hope. You've given her joy. You've given her back her life." Deepak didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. "I've been thinking," Vincent continued, his voice growing softer. "Where do you go when you leave here every evening?" "Different places, sir. Sometimes the train station. Sometimes under the bridge by the market. Wherever seems safe that night." Vincent's jaw tightened. For months, this boy had been bringing light to his home and then going back to sleep on the streets. It was unacceptable. It was wrong. "That ends today," Vincent said firmly. "From now on, this is your home. You'll have your own room, your own bed, your own clothes. You'll go to school. You'll have 3 meals a day, every day. You're not a visitor anymore. Deep, you're family." Deepak's eyes went wide. He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. "But I'm nobody, sir. I'm just a street boy who dances." "No," Vincent said, his voice strong and sure. "You're the boy who saved my daughter. You're the boy who taught me that money isn't everything. You're the boy who showed me what real wealth looks like. And if you'll let me, I'd be honored to be your father." The tears came then, falling down Deepak's face faster than he could wipe them away. He had spent so many years being invisible, being nobody, being the kid that people stepped over or shooed away. And now, this powerful man was offering him a family, a home, a future. "Really?" he whispered. "You really mean it?" Vincent came around the desk and pulled the boy into a hug. "I really mean it. Welcome home, son." That night, Deepak slept in a real bed for the first time in his life. A bed with soft sheets and fluffy pillows in a room that was his own room. He lay there in the darkness, afraid to fall asleep because he was terrified he might wake up and discover it was all a dream. But it wasn't a dream. When morning came, he was still there, and Priya knocked on his door, calling, "Deep, wake up. Lakshmi made dosas for breakfast. Come on." The adoption process took time, but Vincent's lawyers made it happen. Deepak officially became Deepak Kumar, son of Vincent Kumar, brother of Priya Kumar. The newspapers wrote about it. Some people praised Vincent for his generosity. Others criticized him, saying he was being foolish, that the boy would turn out to be trouble. But Vincent didn't care what they said. He had learned something important. The opinions of strangers meant nothing compared to the laughter of his children. Yes, children, because that's what they were now. Priya and Deepak, his daughter and his son. Life in the Kumar mansion became beautiful in ways it had never been before. Every morning started with the three of them having breakfast together. Priya and Deepak would tease each other like real siblings. "You snore like a motorcycle," Priya would say. "You talk in your sleep about food." Deepak would shoot back, and Vincent would sit at the head of the table, smiling, finally understanding what it meant to be truly rich. Deepak started school, and though he struggled at first, he had never been to school before in his life. He worked harder than anyone. Late at night, Vincent would find him at the desk in his room, practicing his letters, reading his books by lamplight. "You should sleep," Vincent would say gently. "There's always tomorrow." But Deepak would shake his head. "I have so much to learn, Papa. I have so much time to make up for." Papa, the word made Vincent's heart full every single time. Priya continued to improve. Physical therapy, combined with Deepak's daily encouragement, helped her get stronger and stronger. 1 year after that first dance in the garden, Priya walked across her room without help. 2 years later, she was running short distances. The doctors called it remarkable. Vincent and Deepak called it a miracle. On the 3rd anniversary of the day Deepak first danced in their garden, the Kumar family had a celebration. The garden was decorated with lights and flowers. Lakshmi made all of everyone's favorite foods. The household staff were invited because they were family too now. And as the sun began to set, Deepak took Priya's hand. "Remember the first time?" he asked. "Remember when I danced to make you laugh?" Priya smiled. "How could I forget? That's the day my life started again." "Dance with me now," Deepak said. "Really dance. Together." And there in the garden, brother and sister danced together. Not with Priya in a wheelchair watching, but both of them on their feet, spinning and laughing under the string lights as Vincent watched with tears of joy running down his face. The street boy who had nothing had found a family. The girl who couldn't walk had learned to dance. And the man who thought money was everything had discovered that the only wealth that truly matters is love. Sometimes the people who have the least to give end up giving us everything. Sometimes a simple act of kindness can change the world. And sometimes the family you need isn't the one you're born into, but the one that finds you when you need them most. This is the story of the boy who danced, the girl who stood up, and the father who learned what it means to be truly rich. And if you listen carefully on quiet evenings in Mumbai, you can still hear laughter echoing from a garden on Malabar Hill, where miracles happen and love lives forever. Thank you for listening to this story. If it touched your heart, I hope you'll share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because we all need to be reminded sometimes that kindness costs nothing but means everything. That hope is stronger than despair. And that love, real love, can heal even the deepest wounds. May you find your own reasons to dance. May you be someone's reason to smile. And may you never forget that the most valuable things in life can never be bought. They can only be given, shared, and treasured. Until next time, keep your heart open, keep dancing, and keep believing in miracles.